They appeared like ghosts from the steppes, 100,000 horsemen moving as one mind. Cities that had stood for centuries crumbled in days. Empires with millions of soldiers fell to a tribe of nomads. One man's genius would paint the map red from Korea to Hungary, building history's largest land empire through tactics so revolutionary, military academies still study them today. The year was 1162, and on the windswept plains of Mongolia, a boy was born clutching a blood clot in his fist. Shamans whispered it was an omen. This child would spill rivers of blood. They called him Temujin. They had no idea how right they were. Destiny doesn't arrive on horseback. It crawls through betrayal, starvation, and loss. When Temujin was only 9 years old, his father Yasuge was poisoned by rival tribesmen. Overnight, his family plummeted from minor nobility to outcasts. His father's allies abandoned them. His mother Holland scavenged for roots and fish to keep her children alive through brutal winters where temperatures dropped to 40 below zero. Temujin learned early that the world respected only one language: strength. When he was a teenager, he killed his own half-brother over a stolen Fisha cold-blooded act that showed his willingness to eliminate any threat, even family. He was captured by rivals, locked in a wooden kang, paraded as a slave, yet he escaped, slipping his bonds and disappearing into the night like smoke. These weren't just hardships, they were lessons carved into his soul with a knife. By his 20s, Temujin began the impossible task of uniting the Mongol tribe's fractured clans who had spent centuries slaughtering each other over grazing lands and ancient grudges. The steppes were a mosaic of violence, where loyalty lasted only as long as the spoils. But Temujin possessed something his rivals lacked: vision. Where others saw enemies, he saw tools. Where others ruled through fear and lineage, he ruled through merit. He promoted warriors based on ability, not bloodline, a radical concept that shattered tribal hierarchies. A shepherd who could fight became a general. A former enemy who showed skill was given command. He rewarded loyalty with wealth and position, creating a meritocracy held together by the promise of conquest and riches beyond imagination. One by one, through brutal warfare and brilliant diplomacy, the tribes fell into line. Those who resisted were annihilated so completely that their names vanished from history. Those who submitted were absorbed, their warriors becoming part of his growing war machine. By 1206, the impossible had happened. The Mongol tribes gathered at the Anon River and proclaimed Temujin as Genghis Khan, universal ruler. The outcast, who had eaten rats to survive now, was commanded the most disciplined cavalry force the world had ever seen. And he was just getting started. What Genghis Khan created wasn't just an army. It was a killing machine, engineered with the precision of a clockwork device. And it operated on principles that defied everything the civilized world understood about warfare. While European knights lumbered into battle weighed down by 60 pounds of armor, Mongol warriors were born in the saddle. A Mongol child learned to ride before they could walk, to shoot a bow while galloping at full speed before they turned 10. These weren't soldiers, they were centaurs, half men and half horse, capable of traveling up to 100 miles in a single day. Each warrior maintained a string of 4 or 5 horses, rotating mounts to prevent exhaustion. They could survive for days on nothing but dried meat and mare's milk, requiring no supply trains, no cumbersome baggage that slowed traditional armies to a crawl. When other armies starved, the Mongols thrived. The Mongols attacked, the Mongols attacked. But Genghis Khan's true genius wasn't in his horsemen, it was in his mind. He organized his forces in units of 10. 10 men formed an Arban, 10 Arbans formed a company of 100, 10 companies formed a battalion of 1,000, and 10 battalions formed a Tummen, 10,000 warriors moving with choreographed precision. If a single man fled in battle, his entire unit of 10 was executed. This wasn't cruelty, it was engineering. Fear of shame became stronger than fear of death. Communication was his secret weapon. where other armies dissolved into chaos once battle began. Mongol commanders used flags, torches, and whistling arrows to transmit orders across miles of battlefield. Units could split, feint, regroup, strike from unexpected angles while their enemies struggled to maintain even basic formations. The Mongols fought like a single organism with 1,000 eyes and 10,000 hands. And then there was psychological warfare, error as a tactical instrument. Genghis Khan understood that a city surrendered without a fight was worth 10 conquered by siege. So he cultivated a reputation of apocalyptic violence. Spies and merchants spread stories ahead of his armies. Entire populations slaughtered. Pyramids built from skulls. Rivers running red for days. Some stories were true. Others were exaggerated. It didn't matter. The effect was the same. When Mongol envoys arrived at a city's gates with an ultimatum: submit or die, the defenders had already heard the tales. They'd heard what happened to cities that resisted. Many opened their gates immediately, sparing themselves and becoming part of the growing empire. Those who fought paid the price in blood, their destruction serving as a lesson to the next city down the road. By 1211, Genghis Khan turned his eyes toward the Jin dynasty of northern China, empire of millions protected by the Great Wall itself. Everyone said it was suicide. The Mongols were horsemen of the open plains. What did they know of siege warfare? They're about to find out. The Great Wall stretched across northern China like a stone dragon 30 feet high, thousands of miles long, studded with fortified towers manned by crossbowmen. For centuries, it had held back the nomadic tribes of the steppes. The Jin dynasty, with its population of 50 million and armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands, felt untouchable behind those ancient stones. Genghis Khan saw something different. He saw a weakness masquerading as strength. The Mongols couldn't storm the wall. They didn't need to. Genghis Khan simply waited until defenders grew complacent, then bribed gatekeepers, or found unguarded mountain passes. The wall was only as strong as the men defending it, and men could be bought, intimidated, or outmaneuvered. Once through, the Mongol cavalry exploded into the Chinese heartland like a flood through a broken dam. Now came the real test. Cities. Massive walled fortresses that mocked cavalry warfare. Beijing alone had walls 40 feet thick and packed with 500,000 people. Traditional nomads would have turned back. Genghis Khan adapted, did something unprecedented. He learned from his enemies. Chinese engineers who surrendered weren't executed. They were recruited. Defecting siege experts taught the Mongols how to build trebuchets, catapults, and siege towers. Within years, the Mongol army had become a hybrid force. Lightning-fast cavalry for open battle, sophisticated siege equipment for fortifications. The siege of Zhongdu modern day, Beijing, lasted over a year. Genghis Khan surrounded the city, cut off supply lines, and waited. Starvation became his weapon. Inside the walls, people ate rats, then leather, then each other. When the city finally fell in 1215, the Mongols methodically looted everything of value, then burned it for an entire month. The smoke could be seen for 100 miles. But China was merely practice. The real prize lay west. In 1218, a catastrophic mistake occurred in the Khwarezmian Empire, Muslim superpower stretching from modern-day Iran to Afghanistan. The Shah's governor at the city of Otrar seized a Mongol trade caravan, executed the merchants, and kept their goods. It was routine border banditry. The governor had no idea he'd just signed his empire's death warrant. Genghis Khan sent ambassadors demanding justice. The Sharagant, dismissive of these barbarians, executed the ambassadors and sent their heads back. In the brutal calculus of steppe diplomacy, this was an unforgivable insult. The Khan gathered his generals and spoke 7 words that would reshape the Middle East. We will teach them the meaning of terror. In 1219, 200,000 Mongol warriors descended on the Khwarezmian Empire like the wrath of God. Cities that had flourished for millennia were systematically erased. Bukhara, the jewel of Islamic learning, saw its libraries burned and scholars slaughtered. Genghis Khan rode his horse into the city's grand mosque and announced, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." Samarkand held out for 5 days before the walls were breached. Of its 100,000 defenders, barely a fraction survived. The governor who had started this war was captured at Otrar. Molten silver was poured into his eyes and ears, a death as cruel as it was symbolic. The conquest wasn't just military, it was systematic annihilation as policy, executed with terrifying efficiency. By 1221, the map of Asia had been redrawn in Mongol blood. An empire that now stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, over 12 million square miles of conquered territory. Genghis Khan, the outcast who once scrounged for food to survive, ruled over more land than Alexander the Great, more people than the Roman Empire at its zenith. But how did he hold it? This is where Genghis Khan's genius transcended mere conquest and entered the realm of revolutionary statecraft. He understood what empire builders before him had forgotten. Terror conquers, but only tolerance sustains. In an age where religious wars consumed Europe and sectarian violence plagued the Middle East, Genghis Khan declared something radical: complete religious freedom. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, shamans, all were protected under Mongol law. He even exempted priests and religious scholars from taxation. Why? Because a population fighting over gods couldn't focus on rebellion. He established the Yamtha, world's first international postal system. Relay stations stretched across the empire, allowing messages to travel thousands of miles in mere weeks. A merchant could carry a Mongol passport from Hungary to Korea and be protected by law. The Silk Road, dormant for centuries under regional conflicts, roared back to life. Ideas, technologies, and goods flowed between East and West like never before. Chinese innovations like gunpowder and printing reached Europe. Persian astronomy influenced Chinese science. Yet the brutality never disappeared. It simply became calculated. Genghis Khan created a legal code called the Yasa: steal a horse, death; commit adultery, death; betray the Khan, your entire family tree was erased. The law applied equally to commoner and noble alike, another revolutionary concept. Justice was harsh, but it was predictable. In a world of chaos, the Mongols offered brutal stability. His military tactics became legendary, studied even today in war colleges from West Point to Sandhurst. The feigned retreat, pretending to flee, then wheeling around to slaughter pursuing enemies. The arrow storm waves of mounted archers releasing valens that darkened the sky. The use of captives as human shields during sieges. The speed marches that allowed Mongol armies to appear where enemies thought them impossible. On August 18, 1227, Genghis Khan died, possibly from injuries sustained falling from his horse, possibly from illness. He was 65 years old. Even in death, he orchestrated terror. His funeral procession killed everyone it encountered to keep his burial site secret. To this day, no one knows where the greatest conqueror in history is buried, but his empire didn't die with him. His sons and grandsons continued the conquest. Mongol armies would eventually reach the gates of Vienna, conquer Russia, destroy Baghdad, the intellectual heart of Islam, establish the Yuan dynasty in China. At its peak, the Mongol Empire would control a quarter of the world's population. The boy born clutching blood had painted half the world red. Modern estimates suggest 40 million people died during the Mongol conquest. 11% of the global population at the time. Entire cities vanished from maps. Civilizations were erased. Yet from that destruction came connection. The Mongol Peace, the Pax Mongolico, created the first truly globalized world. Technologies spread, cultures mixed. The modern world, in many ways, was forged in Mongol fire. Genghis Khan's tactical genius didn't just conquer Asia, it changed the course of human history forever.